Have you ever caught yourself thinking, "Why did I do that?" Or replaying a situation in your head over and over, wishing you'd acted differently? Maybe you find yourself expecting the worst, or feeling haunted by intrusive memories that seem to come out of nowhere. These patterns of thought are common for those impacted by complex trauma and can feel overwhelming. But today we're going to explore why this happens and how you can take steps to manage these distressing thoughts. Complex trauma doesn't just affect your emotions or relationships, it impacts how you think. Your brain is wired to keep you safe, and when it's been exposed to trauma, it becomes hypersensitive to danger. This means your brain is constantly scanning for threats even when none are present. To make decisions quickly, the brain uses heuristics or mental shortcuts to process information. While this can be helpful in some situations, it can also lead to distorted thinking. For example, you might automatically assume the worst-case scenario or blame yourself for things outside of your control. These mental shortcuts are your brain's way of trying to protect you, but they can create a lot of unnecessary stress. Complex trauma happens when someone experiences repeated or long-term stress or harm, often in relationships or environments that were supposed to feel safe. For Black people, this can also include the weight of historical and intergenerational trauma, the kind that comes from systemic oppression, racism, and the legacy of slavery. It's not just about what happened to you personally, but also about what your ancestors endured and how those experiences echo in your life today. Over time, the brain starts to form beliefs or schemas based on repeated experiences. This is a concept from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which explains how our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected. For instance, if you've experienced rejection or failure in the past, your brain might create a belief like, "I'm not good enough," or "I can't trust anyone." These schemas then influence how you interpret future events, often reinforcing negative patterns of self-talk. Let's look at how this might show up in everyday life. You might criticize yourself harshly for making a mistake, thinking, "I always mess things up." Or you might replay a conversation in your head, analyzing every word and worrying about what the other person thought of you. You might feel overwhelmed by intrusive memories, like a song that reminds you of a painful time or a smell that takes you back to a tough moment. These thought patterns can keep you stuck in a cycle of fear, shame, and self-doubt. For example, you might find yourself constantly on edge, scanning for danger, even in safe spaces. Maybe you tense up when you see flashing police lights or hear a loud knock on the door, even if it's just the mailman. Or perhaps you grew up in a household where showing emotions was seen as weak, and now you struggle to open up in relationships, fearing rejection or judgment. These are just a few ways complex trauma can show up in our lives. But here's the good news. You can learn to manage these distressing thoughts. It starts with 4 key steps that help you break the cycle and regain control of your mind. The first step is becoming aware of your triggers. Pay attention to the situations, words, or experiences that tend to set off these distressing thoughts. For example, maybe you notice that criticism from others, or even your own internal pressure to be perfect, triggers a spiral of negative self-talk. By identifying these triggers, you can start to anticipate and prepare for them. The second step is offering yourself compassion. Trauma often teaches us to be hard on ourselves, but healing starts with grace. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, to need help, and to make mistakes. Remind yourself that you're human and that it's okay to struggle. Giving yourself permission to feel without judgment can help soften the intensity of distressing thoughts. The third step is calming your mind and body. This is where you can use CBT strategies to challenge and reframe your thoughts. Start by identifying the thought that's causing distress. For example, "I'm a failure." Then challenge it by asking, "Is this really true? What evidence do I have to support or refute this?" You might realize that one mistake doesn't define you. Reframe the thought into something more balanced, like, "I made a mistake, but I'm learning and growing." Affirmations can also be helpful here. Try repeating phrases like, "I am capable," or "I am doing my best." Pair these strategies with deep breathing to help your body relax and reduce the intensity of the moment. Finally, once you've calmed your mind and body, you can choose how you want to respond. This might mean setting a boundary, communicating a need, or shifting your perspective. For example, if you've been replaying a situation in your head, you might decide to let it go and focus on the present moment instead. Or, if you've been stuck in negative self-talk, you might commit to practicing more affirmations or gratitude. The key is to respond intentionally rather than reacting impulsively. Think of these steps like building a new habit. It takes time and repetition, but every time you practice awareness, compassion, and intentional responses, you're strengthening your ability to manage distressing thoughts. It's not about being perfect, it's about showing up for yourself and taking small steps toward healing. Healing from trauma is a journey, and you don't have to do it alone. Subscribe to our channel for more insights and strategies to help you navigate this process. And don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful. Together, we can take steps toward reclaiming peace and clarity in your mind.